welcome to REHAU Academy on Air. This podcast is a way for us to present non-technical information related to REHAU in a Q&A format with industry experts. I'm Max Rohr, the REHAU Academy Manager for North America.
My guest today is Ernie Chase. He's the Technical Learning Coordinator at Lochinvar in Lebanon, Tennessee. He's one of the trainers at the Lochinvar headquarters and is the admin of their online offering at lochinvaru.com. He worked as a service technician, a rep, and has traveled all over the world to train people on how to install boilers. Welcome, Ernie.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So what's a common mistake that contractors make when installing a boiler in a radiant heat application that you see commonly?
What we deal with the most is application-based. People don't have a really good understanding of the condensing, non-condensing concept, and they get themselves in trouble by picking a non-condensing product where they have a very low return temperature, under 130 degrees, and of course those two things don't go together.
So what's a good fix for that too, just to explain some different concepts as far as mixing goes, or to recommend that they start with a different machine?
Yeah, typically the way we do it here, they would call in and talk to our technical support staff, and we're the ones that have to give them the good news, of course, that maybe they had the wrong product for their application. And then we go through and try to explain and train them on, exactly why you can't condense a copper-type boiler and why a stainless steel boiler does condense, and how that is better for you as far as efficiency is concerned. So we try to do the best that we can. Our job as trainers, obviously, is to get them in before they purchase, to try to get them educated so they don't make those mistakes. But that's the number one mistake that we see.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a fun conversation to have in person or on the phone if the contractor has definitely purchased or misapplied the wrong product. So that's not fun.
Yeah,
so
technical support has its benefits, but some things are not as fun.
Sometimes that can lead to some yelling and screaming, I would imagine. So if you were going to build a new house today for yourself, would you rather have a 96% efficient boiler with bad controls or an 88% efficient boiler with great controls?
Yeah, it's kind of hit or miss. To me, honestly, I'd rather have the higher efficiency with bad controls because, with my background, I can make anything work. I could create my own control to do whatever I needed it to do. Someone told me a long time ago when I first got into doing this business, that you should never spend more on your controls than you do on your appliance. Because a lot of people get into that trap. They'll get a really cheap heating device, and then they'll try to control it out the wazoo, and it just never works. I mean, they end up painting themselves in a corner, and they're unhappy because they tried to save a couple bucks on the heating source. And for me, get the higher efficiency heating source, you can do anything with controls.
And that one of the things that when I was in the field, some of the contractors, I would ask them that question, and they would say, well, I would rather have a cast iron boiler, 80% boiler all day, every day. They just don't break as often. I know what I'm getting. They're really simple. And my argument was always, well, if you take care of it, both boilers should last a long time. I think that you see the neglected, as a service technician, you see the neglected 96% efficient boilers that have never been cleaned, have never been, the combustion was never checked or anything like that. And if they're high maintenance, it's sometimes written off as, oh, well, this machine is too complicated or there's too much going on here, when really I think any boiler, if taken care of properly and, not condensed all the time or whatever the case is should last a long time. It's not like it's a rocket or something that's only meant to be used once.
Yeah, and we're at an interesting point in this industry where you still have a lot of the old school mechanics with that same kind of mindset that you just discussed, but you got a lot of young guys coming in that are really interested in the technology. So those two are kind of not necessarily butting heads, but they're two different philosophies. Of course, as a manufacturer, our philosophy is go with the highest efficiency product you can, and you don't have to skimp on the controls because we have such a good control built in. But the guys that, you're exactly right, the people that just want to put it in the closet and forget it, they don't really care how efficient it is because ultimately it's not them spending the money. They're in it for a year and then the contractor's gone, and the end user is who's going to ultimately pay the price and not get the payback on their system that they're looking for.
And I think sometimes too, contractors are nervous to that they're going to be seen as a rip-off artist if they say, okay, well, we can make this happen with an 80% efficient boiler, but there's a more expensive option in this 96% efficient boiler, and I think you should go that way. I think that there are some contractors that are afraid just as a concept of going for the upsale there, when the best contractors that I know are the ones that embrace that and can really eloquently describe the features of a 96% efficient boiler and the burn down ratio and all the things that are going to make the homeowner more comfortable. But if it's just a line item on a general contractor's list of things that he has to pay for to build a house, it's easier to fall back to that 80% efficient boiler because it is less expensive, where if you can talk to the end user and explain to them what's going on, I think you have a much better chance of, selling it and increasing your margin on the job too. It's just not as common as I think it should be in the industry.
Well, and a lot of contractors, when I was in the contracting business, our boss always told us every service technician is a salesman, but a lot of people just aren't comfortable with that and that aspect of it, and you're exactly right. They don't really go for the upsell. And part of our responsibility is when we talk to these people in class is to explain to them, how this technology actually works and why the efficiency is what it is. It's not magic. Okay, it's science, and we can break it down very easily for them so they can understand it on a fundamental level, so that they're not walking in reading a script. They're talking from their knowledge base, and that really is important.
Yeah, and I think that the more that they know about the new boiler that they're proposing, and the more that they know about houses in general and can identify some of the things that may be an issue. If they say, have you had a lot of creaking and popping noise in this baseboard? And well, with a condensing boiler or with a radiant heat system, if we were going to do an addition, you can make that noise go away with proper design. And some of those things that you can actually look for potential issues that the homeowner may be struggling with, then they're a lot more interested in the 96 versus 80 conversation if it's actually solving a problem. If they just think it's more expensive, then, I don't know, I'm not that interested. The homeowner that, if you ask them what kind of heating system they have and they say, a Honeywell, those are the people that don't necessarily know what's going on down in the mechanical room and wouldn't appreciate an upgrade to something different or better unless you kind of explain the context of, well, what is this going to change in your daily life? Okay, well, you're not going to experience this anymore. Your fuel bills, are going to go down if you do it this way. Here, some of the other benefits to you instead of just, okay, here's A or B, and A is a little bit more expensive. How about B?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's been my experience that you want to get in on a builder level, because if you can get it in on the plan, it's very much like spec jobs when we talk to engineers. If you can get it in the builder's plan, then they have to force them to downgrade, and that's really one of the things that would be the smartest avenue as far as I'm concerned. Get in on that builder level when they, this is the house that we're selling you, that we're going to build you. That's just part of the equation already, and they don't have to think about it. But that's part of the thing we're doing on Lock and Bar U as well, creating tools to make their sales easier, but also the end user and the contractor to ease their mind, because they have calculators and things online that they can go to and feel comfortable playing with this control. Because that's one of the things that we struggle with the most. People are, they're a little frightened of the kind of control that we offer. But it's really actually very simple, and as soon as you play with it for a couple seconds, you realize that.
So what's one of the biggest challenges to getting contractors online to lockandbar.u to view the training offering there?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing we're dealing with so far is just everyone knowing that it's there, that it exists. This is a new concept. We've gone around and looked for other training like this, and I haven't found it. A lot of people are offering webinars and things like that, and some manufacturers will have limited information, very specific on a product, so to speak. Our idea is a little bit different. We're going to have the product stuff out there explaining in detail how the unit works on a technical level, and not so much a sales pitch. Most of what they call training online today is a lot of marketing and not as much technical knowledge. And we're really striving to hit the contractor and say, look, this is a tool just like a hammer or a manometer or a combustion analyzer. And in the future, that cell phone that you're playing Angry Birds on or whatever is going to be a tool that's important to your everyday life. And it's already becoming that. But our job is to make it easy to understand, easy to access, and easy to use.
So what are one of the the early things that a contractor goes through when they log into LochinvarU.com? What do you start with?
Well, it's actually we have a very open platform. So when you come in, it will give you a suggestion on where to go or what your next training should be, but it also gives you the option to go in and pick and choose whatever you would like. There's just a training tab, and you can go through and pick anything you like. And most of it right now is product-based, but we're really trying to push our development program, which teaches technicians from a basic level, like, what is electricity? What is primary, secondary? These are the kind of things that we're trying to, train people on from the ground up that aren't necessarily branded Lochinvar, products. It's important to us that these guys know what they're getting into, and if you understand primary, secondary, then no one has to tell you that your piping is wrong. You can see it for yourself.
And one of the classes that I like too is just a quick class, and it has a test at the end and everything, which I think is good because people will pay more attention if they know there's going to be a test. But it was just how to identify the wires in a Molex plug to know where to start counting and figure it out, because working in the field, that was something that I had never learned, and if there wasn't a color wire tracer, I wouldn't be able to figure it out. But you can actually just go down the number and figure out which wire we're talking about. And that's got to be really helpful for both the technician and for you guys on the tech support line to know, okay, we're talking about the same wire, right? Yep. Okay. It's position number 4 on this plug. Yep. Okay. You sort out a half an hour's worth of running around if you can just get on the same page with something like that. So that's one of the classes that I thought was really helpful. Just this isn't just a sales pitch. This is just hydronics science, and this is going to be helpful for everybody to know.
Yeah, and I mean, that's critical these days, because if you look at a wiring diagram back in the day, they're very much like a treasure map. I mean, everything was in series with each other, and you could run your finger down the electron path, and everything was great. But nowadays, you've got a control board, and everything is connected to it on a different circuit. And if you don't know how to find the wire connections, you're going to be lost. And I think that's, technicians are smart. They'll figure it out. But it's one of those things you're spending twice as much time, maybe 3 times as much time as necessary to get the job done just because you don't know that. And in a 10, 15-minute course with 5 or 10 random questions that are mostly true-false, to be honest, you can get that information that'll be with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I think that it's that's part of the resistance with the modulating condensing boilers is that if you're a contractor if you were an auto mechanic and you'd worked on a Volkswagen Bug your entire life and you open up the back of it and there are only 4 wires to hook up, and then you open up a brand new Volkswagen and there are just relay boxes and wires and unidentified things everywhere. Yeah. It's a little daunting. So to know where to start and how to even begin to troubleshoot something that in some ways took a big jump in complexity, just knowing those simple steps really makes it takes it back to the 4-wire starting point, because it's all relays and switches, and it's not any different mechanism. It's just more of it, I guess.
Well, yeah, and that's where it's gotten a lot better. I mean, honestly, at the turn of the century, the year 2000, we were supposed to have a lot of cool technology that never actually happened, but boilers at that point were becoming, highly efficient, and they were very much Frankenstein's monster. I mean, we were using things that we had around and kind of just cobbled them together, and that takes a lot of wires and a lot of tubes, and they were monsters. You would open one up, and it would scare you. I mean, as a trained technician, you would just, man, this is going to take a while. And nowadays, we've gotten a lot better with that. And if you look inside, I mean, you can walk up to one of our biggest boilers, It's 5 million BTU, and you're thinking, oh my God, this is a monster. And you open it up, and you're like, wow, look at all this room. I mean, there's not a whole lot of wires there, and it's getting a lot better than it used to be. But ultimately, you're dealing with that computer, and that's what it is. I mean, we like to tell guys in the class, the days of hitting it with a bigger wrench, they're over. You've got to roll your sleeves up and learn this control, and it's really not as complicated as people would like to believe it is.
And it gives you, just with boiler controls in general, making these advancements, you have so much more flexibility to adapt the machine without having to adapt the piping or to redo something. We had plenty of retrofit situations where we went in and found out, okay, well, this boiler is 2 times too big, so we're going to have to limit the firing rate so it doesn't go over 50% because you just don't physically have enough space to put all the BTUs that are going to come out of this boiler. And instead of having to 20 years ago, you would either have to repipe the whole thing or take that boiler out or something like that. So we have the advantage of if you're willing to embrace the cool parts of the technology, you can really make your job easier by knowing how to navigate those different menus and things.
Yeah, it was typical back in the day. I mean, you're looking at $1,200 to get a control to stick on the wall to do everything that you thought the boiler itself could do that it couldn't. But now, I mean, these machines have taken over. They can do building management as good or better than building management's done just in the field because they have all of that technology built in. And we like to tell people, the control itself, you're going to set a set point, you're going to give it a time and date, and maybe set an outdoor reset curve. And that's really all you have to do, unless you connect them all together, then you're setting up some cascade. But other than that, the other 300 things in there are just to get you out of trouble if you get yourself in a bad spot. I mean, really.
Yeah.
So that's the control will give you.
Yeah. So what details do you look for in a mechanical room to see if the contractor is doing a great job or not? What are some of your tells if it's quality work or not?
Well, the first thing is neatness and cleanness. The guy I worked for years ago, he was a great guy, but he would come to our job sites, and he had a bubble in his eye, is what we used to say, because he could see level, from across the street. And if you had a pipe out of level, you were resoldering it. There was nothing to it. He didn't care what it cost. It had to be done right. So, I mean, if you walk into a job site and it's messy and nasty and they just rush the job, you can tell that from a guy that's, a professional that gets in there and really cares about the quality of their work. Since ProPress has come along and these other things, guys are saying, the artistry of soldering and our work is going away. It's going to end up like the dodo. But really, there's still the ability to make it look great. And if we can do that, then that's quality work in itself.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters the piping material that you use. If you're paying attention, and some of the people that I worked with in Colorado had those, 3-dimensional lasers that they could level everything to. Those jobs are going to look good. I mean, you could give somebody, playground pipe or something like that. You could go shop at Home Depot and get all those materials, and that person would still make it look nice. So I don't think that faster connections are, ruining the artistry of it. I think that there's still a lot you can do within that, and just, properly supporting the different components and making it serviceable. I think that that was one of the things for me, is that there were a lot of job sites that looked great until that one tank in the back buried behind all the piping goes bad, and then it doesn't look as good as you have to take a hacksaw to the whole system basically. So
or you have to do a pump curve reading, and there's no isolation on the pump, so you have to drain half the system just to put Pete's plugs in. Those kind of things matter.
Yeah, and it's something that it goes back to that initial cost, that it won't be the cheapest to do that, but if you plan on being around for a while, somebody's going to put a nail through the snow melt, piping or something like that. And if you have to then drain the entire house because you couldn't isolate that, then that's going to be an expensive day, and it's going to offset the cost of whatever you saved by not putting into ball valves to start with.
Yeah, I agree. You can't have too much isolation. You can spend too much, but you can't have too much isolation, that's for sure.
Yeah. So who is one of your favorite teachers and why?
Well, I mean, I've been doing this a while now, so I've accumulated quite a few. My boss is really good. His name's Charles Phillips. He's been at Lochinvar for 25 plus years, and he does a great job. And speaking to people at a personal level. I've also been exposed to guys, like John Barba and Siggenthaler, and got a lot of Dan Houlihan early on. Reading his books to figure out, exactly how this stuff works. And he speaks at that same kind of level. He talks to you like you're standing in a mechanical room and not a boardroom, right? And so those are the kind of teachers I've always kind of have gone to because they speak my language.
And I think the best teachers can kind of adapt to whatever level the student is on. So if you can explain something perfectly to an engineer who knows everything and then explain the same concept to a first day apprentice and have both of them understand what you're saying, I think that's a pretty impressive talent to have, and it's really helpful for trainers. So
yeah, it's key in our industry because we're dealing with not only contractors, but we have engineers coming in all the time, building owners coming in. So we really do, and they're all sitting in the same class, and so we really do have to speak all the languages at once if you're going to get the information across.
Yeah, you have to be able to adapt to a very mixed crowd anymore.
Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right? You make some people laugh with something else, and you really knock a home run out with some really good information somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me today. You can find more from Ernie at lochinvaru.com. You can also see the in-person training offering at lochinvar.com/train.aspx.
To find REHAU technical training, go to na.rehau.com/academy and check out REHAU America's YouTube channel. Our Twitter handle is @REHAU, and you can always ask your sales rep for more information about local trainings.